Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoy the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook.
Welcome to a Half Dozen Things podcast and Fleet Geeks podcast. So recently, you'll have heard that I've launched the Fleet Geeks podcast with my excellent colleagues, Mike Vickers, who's joining me today, and Jamie Bielawski. And what I'm doing just to get things off the ground, I know a lot of people who listen to the Half Dozen Things podcast are going to really enjoy the Fleet Geeks podcast. So we're going to run them side by side for a couple of episodes, and this is going to be one of them. And I'm joined by Mike, who's recently joined Flagship Partners. He's an absolute legend in his own lifetime. And when I interviewed Mike, and I mentioned to Jamie about Mike coming to join, Jamie knew straight away who Mike was because he'd done his Transport Manager CPC refresher with him. So, but yeah, quick introduction. Mike Vickers joined us recently, is going to be helping Flagship Partners launch their Transport Manager CPC offering. And as part of doing that, we're going to be talking today around 6 tips to achieving Transport Manager CPC exam success. So just quickly, Mike, how long have you been training Transport Manager CPC, and what do you enjoy about doing it?
So it's 6 years I've been doing it now. It just seems like 5 minutes since I started doing it. Very nervous trainer, stepping up to the plate on the very first day was quite daunting. But I kind of grew into the role, and sometimes it takes a while later in life until you sort of realise that why wasn't I doing this 20 years ago? Why am I doing it now? But then I suppose the answer to that question was 20 years ago. I didn't know what I know now after, a lifetime in the industry, as it were. Yeah, absolutely love it. And I remember on we were talking in the when we first started talking. You said we looked at the possibilities for this and where it could go, and you said, "Are you sure you don't mind doing Transport Manager? Lots and lots of them, repetitive." And I said, "I'd do them every single day of the week if I could. I'd probably even do them Saturdays and Sundays." It's just something I really enjoy doing, and hopefully that comes across in terms of my delivery style and the lessons. So really excited to be joining Flagship, and of course really excited to be a part of the podcast team as well. And I'm sure, you're absolutely correct. Everybody, I've been in the industry a long time. There's nothing like this. This is going to be unique, and Fleet Geeks I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, awesome. I'm really buzzing about it as well. I think it's one thing when you launch a podcast on your own, but when you do it with a group of people and you can all share ideas and have a good bit of banter, I think it's going to be spot on, mate, to be fair. So today we're doing a quick session on your 6 tips to exam success for Transport Manager CPC. And one of the things is in your 6 years of delivering training, I'm sure you'll have seen all types of different candidates from all different walks of life and all different levels of experience. But one thing's for certain, it's not an easy exam, right? Do you know what the statistics are around the pass rate and that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's the national. It's the elephant in the room is it's an A level. It's a level 3 qualification. So on the grand scheme of things, it's an A level qualification. Most A level students will get sort of 2 years. A bit of drunkenness and debauchery chucked in there as well, but they'll get 2 years to do an A level, whereas the candidates that we have on Transport Manager have got 2 weeks. So the national pass rate first time is just over the 50%. So it isn't an easy one, but even those candidates who are not quite successful first time round, generally speaking, it's some of them, it's a long time since they've been in an exam environment. It's something different, it's something new, and second time around, they generally smash it. But it's you're right. There's no two ways about it. It is a difficult but rewarding achievement.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're thinking about getting your Transport Manager CPC, the first bit of advice I'd give you is don't. And the second bit of advice I'd give you is I'm only joking. It's not an easy exam, But like you say, it's very worthwhile. And you know what? It's one of the most rewarding things I've done. I've not actually had my Transport Manager CPC that long. I've done the role for a long time in a restricted operator, and I had to learn, had to self-teach. And it took me, passing the TM CPC was kind of an afterthought. And even after I'd done the roles, I'd been fulfilling the duties for many years in my 20s. So when it came to actually studying and doing it, it was a little bit of a doddle to an extent, because I'd kind of lived it and breathed it, and I'd actually made every mistake under the sun as it was anyway. But let's have a little go through your 6 tips to achieving Transport Manager success, Mike. So the first tip, and I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview here, listeners. The first tip is about not panicking. The second is about preparing to learn. The third, avoid distractions and enlisting a support bubble. The fourth is, if you don't understand, just ask. 5, smash the 5 key areas of the exam. And 6, RTFQ. I think I know what that might stand for, but we'll wait till the end to find out. So tell me about don't panic. It's going to be an enjoyable learning experience, the first tip.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, I've noticed it more over the last few years. We've seen a much bigger variety of people from all kinds of backgrounds coming into Transport Manager exam. And, so that we're starting off at a point where we're sort of, various different levels of expertise, knowledge and experience. But don't panic. You're not on your own. You're going to come into a room full of people who are thinking exactly the same as what you're thinking now. It's a daunting. What am I doing here? How did I get into this mess in the first place? And then when you see the size of the supporting folders that go with it, the first thing is to naturally panic. But don't. We here at Flagship, we're going to make it as an enjoyable experience as we possibly can for you through the course of the course. So. It's going to be a positive learning experience. Some of the greatest feedback I've had is not, I love people telling me how, handsome, good looking, suave and debonair I am. But the really interesting feedback I've had recently, and the one that's humbled me more than ever, is people saying that it wasn't just the passing of an exam or the sitting of a course. It was the reintroduction into learning, and it's inspired people to take on different aspects of learning, maybe a different language, or maybe getting into other areas of business development, etc. So it's going to be a positive learning experience, and I think that's from my point of view, that's what I want people to take away, and not be frightened at the start. Everybody's in the same boat, and honestly, everybody's bricking it right from the start, including the trainer. So don't be worried about that. I think, talking about nerves and panic, I think I get more nervous than the candidate. So don't worry, I'll take all your nerves for you. But
Brilliant.
My number one. Take it in your stride. Don't panic. You're not on your own. You're going to get supported. You're going to get supported by the trainers. You're going to get supported by each other as well. I always look at groups and think, we've all, some of us might come from an engineering background, others from, transport management, others might be finance orientated, HR, health and safety. Let's learn from each other as well. You'll have that support network around you as well with other people in the group. So don't panic is my first piece of advice.
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's scientifically proven that stress makes you stupid, right? So physically what happens when you get stressed is your brain expands, and literally it just starts thinking in a more foggy way. So I know that the threat of classroom training, particularly for like 2 weeks, is enough to give a lot of people feel a little bit hot under the collar. A lot of the people in the fleet sector probably were, learning or being in a classroom environment isn't going to be for them. I think the big thing that I want to send as a reassurance is that we, certainly if you come and join us at Flagship, we will make it as comfortable as we can for you. We've got a really nice supportive environment. The actual environment itself is amazing. We've got a well lit, lots of natural light. We make sure you get a nice quality lunch as well. When we move to our new premises, we're going to be getting a nice mixed buffet of healthy food as well. So that's going to help people think. Plenty of water, plenty of coffee and tea at everyone's disposal. So what more could you want from a learning environment? I think just relax and enjoy the ride. You're in safe hands. This guy Mike's been doing it 6 years, right? And he's had plenty of people pass it. So you're in a good set of hands. So the second area, prepare to learn. Tell me about preparing to learn then, Mike.
Yeah, coming on nicely from the panic, and that is get yourself ready. It doesn't, people say, yeah, but I've not been doing the job long, or I'm fairly new to transport. Other people say I'm not a driver. So what? It doesn't really matter. Everybody is at the same position when we come to starting this. But if you can prepare yourself in two ways, really. Prepare yourself to learn. I think that's one thing. As I say, a lot of people, it'd be a long time since they left a classroom, or perhaps their experience of classroom wasn't. I was no shining light at school, I must admit. But it was only after I'd left school and sort of got bitten by the learning bug that I would manage to achieve things that I wouldn't have achieved when I was younger. So get yourself into that mindset. Prepare to learn. Ask, experience. There are other people around. You'll hear horror stories about Transport Manager, and you will. But it's good to get that sort of background. On a more practical level and slightly more boring level, there is some reading that you can do, some research you can do beforehand. There's certain publications that you can. I mean, the internet is full of wonderful stuff, and the .gov website. I mean, no matter what we might think of this government, any government, the previous governments, one thing they are pretty good at is getting information on the .gov website. It's a great website, works really well. Loads of information on there to help you. Just put in, becoming a goods vehicle operator, or lots of different search engines will take you to the .gov website. There's three publications in particular I just want to mention, and one of them is the Guide to Maintaining Roadworthiness. The Guide to Maintaining Roadworthiness, not only is it a super publication for you to accompany you on your transport manager journey, but as a transport professional, if you're at what we call the touching point of transport, if you're involved in some way, shape or form in the operation of heavy goods vehicles, or vans, cars, whatever, that is a brilliant publication. It's what we call an everyday publication. It's something people should have on their desktop. So if you can get a hard copy, brilliant. But that it is available in desktop format. Guide to Maintaining Roadworthiness, published by the DVSA. Fantastic. That'll tell you all you need to know about the maintenance side of things. A more wordy document, not quite so sexy, is the what the Department of Transport called GV262, which is the Guide to Driver's Hours and Tachographs. Bit of bedtime reading. In fact, if your Coco's and your Horlicks don't send you to sleep, that certainly will. But it's for anybody who's new to driver's hours, it is quite a daunting job to pick up driver's hours. But that's your go-to guide. And then last but by no means least is the GV74, which is the Guide to Becoming a Heavy Goods Vehicle Operator. And that takes you through the process. So on a higher level, just get your mindset ready, get yourself prepared to learn, listen to experience, etc. But on a more sort of practical level, those three publications would be a great start. But please don't worry about the information. One thing I will say on a slightly more negative note is we all work, there's people work in various different operators, hauliers, people who run heavy goods vehicles, maybe not even from that background at all. You kind of have to forget that world slightly and what you do and the processes and procedures that you use and come into what we call exam world. So just kind of leave that at the doorstep. It's great to have that experience, but kind of leave what you do at the doorstep. So that's my second tip: prepare.
Yeah, brilliant. I think you're absolutely right there, and the preparation is everything. I think a lot of people say to me, what do I need to know before I go into this training? I would suggest join one of the communities on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even give the Fleet Geeks Transport Manager community a go. It's a free environment. You can ask safe questions. You can ask questions anonymously, and you can get support. I can name lots and lots of transport managers that I know listen to the podcast and comment on a regular basis that have a wealth of knowledge. And sometimes if you ask something and people perceive it to be a stupid question, you will get stupid people give stupid answers. However, there's always people in the community that give really, really grown-up responses. You've got James Adcroft, who's a senior TM at Tesco. Obviously, the huge supermarket. He's got a wealth of experience, and he will always help young or new or incoming transport managers. Richie Idden's another one. Tom Reddy comes to mind. Phil Shepherd. There's several of them on the Transport Manager community forums that are really, really helpful guys and always willing to lend an ear. And then alongside that, I think obviously what I mentioned earlier, Half Dozen Things podcast. I have made quite a few podcasts there and interviewed some really interesting people. You know, you've got Beverly Bell, former senior traffic commissioner, soon to be released Phil Breen from Earned Recognition as well. So we've got some really good people for you to have a listen out to as well. But ultimately, like you say, the .gov website is the go-to. I think be very wary when you do search things. From my experience, when you search things, make sure you do look at the authority level of the website that you're looking at. You can guarantee if it's from someone like Smith Bowyer Clark or Backhouse Jones or Rotherus, for example, you know that you can trust what's on there because they're very legitimate, very well respected road transport solicitors. But be careful of, I think that there's some companies out there who'll maybe copy and paste stuff and what have you. So definitely look for the Gov websites or look for the transport solicitors, because I think they're, generally speaking, these guys know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So, there's also sorry go on, Mike.
We all know the dangers of social media, and we don't need to you don't need any lectures on that from me. I'm a bit of a technophobe when it comes to things like that, but I do know that if the enforcement authorities have a very good presence on social media. So if you want to find out the kind of work that the DVSA do and the various police commercial vehicle units up and down the country, they have a very good presence on social media. I don't do kind of Facebook myself. I'm more of a Twitter kind of guy. And so, there is some good information to pick up from there. But of course, that comes with a caveat, as Pete says. You've got to be careful with anything to do with the great interweb.
Absolutely. And if you're not careful, all of a sudden you can find yourself on all sorts of websites if you start looking at car crashes and things like that. Anyway, right. Yes. The third thing was around avoiding distractions and enlisting your support bubble. Tell me a bit more about that, Mike.
Yeah, easier said than done. And we have to tread very, very carefully here as trainers, because essentially the classroom course is kind of 2 weeks and a little bit more out of a working life, out of a working sort of operation. So it's very difficult for anybody, and no matter what role, what business they work in, to say, right, okay, you go off for 2 weeks and a little bit more, and we won't contact you. You don't have to worry about your inbox. Basically, put your out of hours on, and nobody's going to contact. So in real life, it's a heck of a commitment to have somebody on a course like this. So in real life, that doesn't always happen. And but the candidates that struggle most are those that are trying to juggle too many balls in the air at one time. And if you're trying to do a job of work, if you've got something going on, it's very, very difficult to maintain that level of focus and concentration through doing a 2-week course. So one way of avoiding distractions is let people know what you're doing. If you tell people what, and I know with that comes the worry that if I've told somebody, telling somebody I'm going to go and run a marathon, and then 6 months later they still find I'm 3 stone overweight and plodding around, it's a failure. But there is that danger. If you tell people what you're doing, they're always going to ask you, how are you getting on with your course? Have you passed? Did you pass? How did you get on? Did you but I think as more people that that you can bring into your support bubble, they will protect you, they will sort of field out that interference from as much as they possibly can. So these days we are easily distracted by lots and lots of things, social media, work, family life, etc. But we can take steps to minimize that then we're going to be in a much better position to focus on as we've already spoken about. This is this kind of large job that we've got. So just to put it into context, from scratch, the idea is from scratch you need about 141 hours to achieve what they call a level 3 qualification. So this is not specifically Transport Manager. This is a level 3 A-level qualification. You need about 141 hours of study. We're going to give you 72 hours or so in the classroom. You don't need to be a mathematician to work out that there's going to be some heavy work that you're going to have to do yourself, and if you haven't got the time and space to do that, it can be challenging. But on the other side of that coin, I would say don't overdo it. Absolutely don't overdo it. Learn how to take things easier, relax, take time away. Don't get. I mean, Pete's much more an expert on this than I am, but just use whatever techniques that you can build to get that relaxation and that time away in. So it is a balancing act. So that's my third. One very difficult in today's world, but yeah, avoid distractions. Get that support bubble going. You'll be fine.
Yeah. I think I totally resonate with what you're saying there. I think we're regularly distracted by notifications on our phone, and it takes up to 7 minutes to recover our thought process and our concentration. 7 minutes following a notification or a diversion of our concentration. So that can be pretty catastrophic. And I'm a firm believer of these mobile phone devices are there to serve us as a tool, and that turning off all notifications will serve you very, very well, and having set periods throughout the day where you check your phone. But I would also caveat that with, if you're listening and you're looking to put members of your team through a Transport Manager CPC qualification, I really do urge you, because it will save you money longer term by not distracting them with business related things, by allowing them to be present on the training course and network with the other people around them within the room, by allowing them that safe space and time to be able to do it. The chances of them passing that qualification are huge, and that's based on science. That is wholly based on science, that the more you're able to concentrate, because 141 hours of staring out a window going, I'm never going to pass this exam because this is stressing me out and that's stressing me out, is never going to serve anybody. You need 141 hours of concentrated focus, and it's really, really important to not have those distractions. I believe, and also like you say, I think one of the challenges, particularly when you're learning something like the operations or legalities around transport management, one of the things is you don't know what you don't know. So unless you're around other people, then sometimes you don't realize the breadth of the industry that you're looking at, or the the full scope of what you could come into contact with. So by networking with other people, you're going to have people from all different industries. The only thing that potentially joins them together is the fact of operating vehicles, when all of a sudden you could have a waste and recycling professional, or you could have a builder's merchant, or you could have a general haulage person or a tipper operation. But everyone's business is different, and the way they run their planning and the way they run their schedules and the way the different operations, and you have to have the business understanding to be able to pass the exam, and sole traders and limited companies, and understanding all the finances around that. You're going to have people in the room with a wealth of knowledge, and actually you might learn better by having conversations with people between, and you pick up those opportunities. So I think that's a really great point, Mike. The fourth one is, if you don't understand, just ask. So are you saying there's no such thing as a stupid question?
The only stupid question is the one that you don't ask.
Absolutely.
And that was day number one as a trainer, lesson number one. From a great guy. I mean, even, I started doing this 6 years ago, and, I was reasonably getting on then. But, we needed mentoring. I needed mentoring as a trainer. And I had this great guy mentor me, a wonderful chap called Derek Rose. And Derek, that was the first thing, he taught me. There is no such thing as a stupid question. The stupid bit is not asking it. And I try to reassure delegates that, I've been in your position. I'm sure Pete can level with this. I've been in your position. I've sat on many courses, and I've sat there and I've been thinking, "Ooh, I'd really like to ask that, but I'm so frightened to ask that question because I'm in a group of people who are, my peers, who I should be at the same level as. And if I ask that question, I'm going to appear stupid." Now, sometimes, we all, and I, to this day, I get this. We've all got gaps in our knowledge, and as Pete says, if you don't know, you don't know. And to sit there and hold that in is ridiculous, because no one's going to judge you on it.
It's Pete from Flagship Partners. We're really proud to sponsor a Half Dozen Things podcast. At Flagship Partners, we take road safety really seriously, and we're your road safety partnership. We help transport companies with compliance and training across their businesses, including first aid, driver CPC, and other transport management services. So if you're FORS accredited or you want to improve your operator compliance risk score, give Flagship Partners a call today.
It's like, so me, I'm very much like that. You might think, well, you're a trainer, you should be, not a shrinking sort of wallflower who's just sort of blending in the background. But I sit there petrified. I daren't ask this question. And all of a sudden, somebody sit 2 or 3 seats down from me asks the same question. I think, woo, I'm glad you asked that and not me. But that is not the way. And you'll never, ever from me, and, take me outside and shoot me if that's the case. You'll never, ever find that I would sort of be surprised or I've seen some trainers are almost aggressive with their did you know that sort of kind of attitude. I'll never be with me. And you don't know what you don't know, please ask. And if I've been stumped. People have asked me questions, and I'd sort of hold my hands up and say, "Do you know what? I don't know that, but I know somebody who will." So we can go away and we can. And I think there's a really good message in that for anybody who's. I learned this as an operational transport manager. It's Friday. It's 5 o'clock. Funny enough, loads of drivers in the waiting room, and they're shouting questions at you. The worst thing you can do is try to answer those questions without having the full knowledge, because you'll just back yourself into a corner. So trainers very much like that as well. If I don't know, I'll park that to one side. We can find out. It's not a problem. But definitely, if please, I don't want anybody to sit there thinking, I don't want to ask this question. We're all in the same boat.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's number 4 for me.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think with like with anything, I would sooner, if I know a categoric answer to something, I would sooner give that. But if I'm uncertain of the answer, I'd sooner say, I don't actually know the answer to that. I think I may know, but I'd sooner admit not knowing and finding out for certain. But I've got this amazing device here, and in this amazing device, I've got, and I don't tend to go to places like Facebook to ask the questions. I've built relationships with people like Chris Powell, the solicitor at Rotherhurst. I've got Beverly Bell, the former senior traffic commissioner, in there. And I'll soon go and ask the question of someone and find an answer which is categoric and obviously with a huge amount of authority. So I think by the point I'm making is ask the question, and you may just stump one of us anyway, but we may not know it, and we'll certainly help you. But if we do, and if we can help, then we've got, as the business of Flagship Partners, if you chose to come and train with us, you'll have the access to our network and our wealth of contacts and people that we trust to be able to give a really good response to anything that you do ask. But absolutely, I think it's about having that bravery and vulnerability. When you're vulnerable, when you're brave, that they're when you do learn. They're when you have the open-mindedness to be able to ask a question and then be able to get a good response. So, okay, brilliant. So the 5th area is around smashing the 5. So off the top of my head, I don't know what the 5 key areas are of the exam. So tell me about those.
Yeah. So the exam. The syllabus. The syllabus is actually. I'm getting into geek mode here, but the syllabus is actually set in.
We are the fleet geeks. We are the
fleet geeks. It's
nice
the syllabus
plug there, mate.
Never miss an opportunity to have a plug there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
the legislation, the syllabus is set in legislation. It's actually European legislation that we've adopted fully as you know, we don't think, we've left Europe now, that doesn't count. It's there. It's ingrained in our legislation. But the syllabus is actually set in legislation. So it says this is what we would expect a transport manager to be competent in, and these are the areas that we expect them to be competent in. So the exam can literally ask you a question over a massive breadth of subjects in our industry, and as Pete alluded to already, you know, there are areas of the business that I've never been involved in on a personal level. You know, transportation of animals, etc. Never really had that much to do with tankers and you know, that kind of thing. So, we're opening up in a whole sort of new, and there's other areas as well. Remember, this is a management exam. So we could be looking at areas such as health and safety. For one, we're normally in our positions, we are the frontline managers. You know, we're the first people to speak to drivers and other staff. So, you know, we have to know a little bit about HR and the specialist kind of subjects, you know, such as, I say, the transportation of animals. And I always say to people on day one, you might already have a really good knowledge of lots of things like driver's hours, etc. But by the time we get to what I call the pig day, and the pig day is where we learn when a pig should be offered food and water and the length of journey. And I said, you'll forget everything else, but you'll always remember when you should feed a pig. So there's a whole gambit, whole range of subjects that the exam covers. But clearly, you're not going to get 60 questions on pig transportation. So what they do, what the exam setters do, is look at key areas, and they weight the exam in those key areas. So whilst we have to learn everything from a wide syllabus, it's really those top 5 that people should hone in on and absolutely smash. So I'll go through them then. Number 1, top of the tree.
Yeah, please tell me, Mike. Mike, tell me more. What are the 5 areas?
The top 5 coming in. It shows my age. I'm going to show my age here because I'm going to make reference to a Radio 1 DJ who's probably on a register somewhere now, because most of them were from the 70s when I was around. Coming in at, I'll start from the back, and then coming in at number 5 then is financial management, and that's the one I think a lot of people get the heebie-jeebies over. They absolutely free. Most people will freeze when it's when you mention finance, but really, and a lot of people ask the question, why on earth? You know, I work in a company, we've got an accounts department, it's not my thing, it's not my bag. Why on earth are we learning about finance? Well, there's 3 key areas of finance that we need to learn about, really. One of them is vehicle costings. We all need to know. It doesn't matter what we do. We should all get a rough idea. We should all have a rough idea of, if we're going to send a vehicle from Peterborough to Leeds, how much is it costing us to send that vehicle from Peterborough to Leeds? And what we'd like to do as a haulier, what we'd like to do is find out how much it's costing to send that vehicle from Peterborough to Leeds, and hopefully charge our customer a little bit more, because that's what we call profit, and that's what we call. Or in fact, actually, in the exam they talk about it as a margin rather than a profit. Profit seems to be a little bit of a dirty word. So that's one of the things we need to learn about vehicle costings. The other part of financial management we need to learn about is budgeting. We all budget. Everybody budgets. It's a personal budget. You get paid at the end of the month, and you've got money coming in, money going out. That's what a budget is. And some of us will be professionally involved with budgets, overtime budgets, labour budgets, parts budgets, fuel budgets, etc. So that's a reasonably straightforward one. And the other one is to look at the workings of, if you like, workings of a balance sheet. And this becomes really, really important when we look at something called financial standing and how financial standing is calculated. So it's really important that the transport manager understands how that kind of thing is put together. If nothing else from the finance topics, you'll enjoy Dragon's Den more. You can see Peter Jones getting very upset and Deborah Mead get very upset when people come on and they don't know the numbers. And you probably, no disrespect, but probably a lot of people are sat there thinking, well, I don't really know what they're moaning about. I don't really know what Peter Jones is getting his stripy socks in a twist about. But you'll understand that a lot more when we understand how a balance sheet works, etc. Coming in at number 4 then is this right at Peach Street. This one really is vehicle maintenance. I think it's rare. You know, it doesn't matter what you do, whether you do your own in-house maintenance, whether you farm it out to a third-party provider. Maintenance, and of course, maintenance begins at home with the drivers doing the walk-around checks, etc. The good news is that you're not going to need to describe how you would change a gearbox in a Scania or a rear axle in a DAF tipper. That it doesn't delve that deeply into the subject, but you know, maintenance. Guide to Maintaining Roadworthiness, all you need to know about maintenance. It really is cracking for that. Coming in at number 3, no particular order for these, well, just as I say, I fancy being the Radio 1 DJ there. Coming in at number 3 is driver licensing, a key area, of course, area that's undergone a little bit of change recently. And, you know, obviously a key area for us. So to be a qualified driver, driving vocationally, driving for a living, it's just not about driving licenses, license acquisition in the first place. It's about the driver CPC qualification, the DCPC, and you know, maintaining that through periodic training, and of course medical standards, checking licenses. So it's a little bit more into it than just a driver's licensing thing. Coming in at number, I forgot where we got to. They're coming in at number, where have we got to on the program? I think number 2, driver's hours. Driver's hours and record keeping. Again, you know, it's a Marmite subject. You either love it or hate it. Anybody, you know, if drivers, I always find drivers have got a slight advantage here because they should, not always, but should be fairly familiar with driver's hours rules. But of course, there isn't just EU driver's hours rules we have to think about. It's domestic rules as well, which might be new to a lot of people. Might a lot of people not realise that we've got something that harks back to 1969 called the GB domestic driver's hours rules. So, and also, of course, you know, the vast majority of people operate within the UK, and they operate, you know, fairly normal patterns, but there are things that we do, such as you know, going abroad, taking ferries, double manning, and etc. So puts that into the mix a little bit more. I promise anybody who's new to driver's hours, I promise you, I you know, sort of honed away and making it very, very easy for you. It's not an easy subject, but we'll make it as easy as we can for you. It's really not that daunting. I've got a challenge to people, and I always say to them, if you know, for the basics of driver's hours, if you can remember 15 numbers, if you can recall 15 numbers, in fact, there is only 12, 3 of them are repeated, then you have the basics of driver's hours. It can be done in 15 numbers. So that's a challenge. And of course, we've got the working time rules as well, which are a little bit complicated and can cause some issues. So driver's hours comes in at number 2. Operator licensing, top of the tree, coming in at number 1. It's the reason why you know, we need a certificate of professional competence in the first place. If we're going to be named as a transport manager on an operator's license, then we need that professional competence. So operators licensing we always start with operator licensing after we've done a few preliminaries, because it's kind of, you know, from everything else that grows. With operator licensing, when you apply for an operator's license, you sign to say that you are going to fulfill your 11 undertakings. So those promises that you make into the traffic commissioner, and it's kind of those 11 undertakings form the real basis, backbone of what we do. So operator licensing coming in at number 1. I won't do my best now then impression, because that would be inappropriate at this level. So smash the top 5.
Amazing. And well, like you say, I think all 5 areas are really, really key, and it just goes to show how broad that exam's going to be, and the different things it's going to cover. Because I tell you what, one thing I can't tell you is when you need to feed a pig.
Do you know what? You put me on the spot now. You have to offer them.
I'm not asking. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I can't remember. Someone mentioned it the other day. If you had to sit down and redo your multiple choice as a TMCPC holder, if you had to sit down and take your multiple choice, would you pass it again? And I reckon I would, because it's mostly, I think it's a 50%. ish, just over maybe 60% pass mark. So you need to get somewhere between 30 and 40 out of 60, do you?
That's correct. Yeah.
I reckon I'd be able to do it. But I tell you what, there'll probably be 20 questions in there that I'll just go, or 10 questions at least, that I'll probably just scratch my head at. And well, they're multiple guess, aren't they? So hopefully out of the multiple guess options, there's 2 that you can eliminate straight away, and then you're down to a little bit of common sense. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely, yeah. And multiple choice can sometimes, I'd say it's about an 80-20 split. 1 in 5 candidates will say, do you know what? I prefer the written exam because, it's asking me to put things in my own words, and I'm very good at that. But 80% of people are going to say, no, the multiple choice is the one for me because, as you say, you got 4 choices. Eliminate 2 that it can't be. We've watched The Chase. We've done Millionaire. It's multiple choice. But
here's a little story. Here's a little story actually, and this is my top tip actually from pass the exam, and it's slightly different because we'll get onto your final one in a mo. But my top tip for passing this exam, right? And it's something I witnessed firsthand. I went and took my exam at the Crescent in Peterborough. It was an OCR exam, and there were a lot of delegates there who'd obviously been on AN trade body, training company that are based in Peterborough, who we shan't mention. And I attended having self-studied, and we went in, and I recognised a lot of the faces. And actually, after the exam, when we all got our results, I found out that a lot of the faces I recognised didn't pass. Then you had the opportunity during the multiple choice to be able to go out a little bit early whilst other people stayed behind to carry on doing the exam. I don't know if the other awarding bodies allow a similar thing, but certainly at OCR it was a thing. Anyway, I stayed behind. I was like, no, I'm going to reread my answers, and I'm going to re-answer. I reckon I changed about 10 answers in that extra period of time as I reread, and I thought I'd probably gone a little bit question blind because I'd kind of faffed around, but I did pass first time. So the moral of that story is definitely make sure that you stick around and make the most of that time with those answers.
Absolutely. It's your time to use. No one's in a race. You're not going to get any, you don't get extra points for finishing first. So, you use your time. On the other side of that coin, sometimes you can get question blind, as you say there, Pete. But I always say, and it leads nicely into our last point when we come to that in a moment. But I mean, as long as you've read, you've understood the question, understood the question. I always think Bradley Walsh has some great advice, doesn't he, on The Chase, where he just, go with your gut, and if you think it looks right, it probably is right, and if you try to second guess yourself too much, it can go the other way. But it's absolutely, it's your time. You aren't going to get any, you're not going to get suddenly 10 bonus points because you finished first. In fact, in my experience, people who finish quickly can sometimes be unsuccessful. And I say, well, how on earth did you finish that quickly? Because I probably couldn't. And, I wrote some of the questions. So, it's that, mind you, having said that doesn't mean to get them right, because I've been racking my brains about poor old pigs. And I think it's you have to offer them some water at 24 hours. So, I don't know if they decline. I don't know, politely decline. I don't know. What would you do?
I don't know. I reckon they might oink at you when they're hungry. I said when they oink, or when you've run out of Percy pigs that you've eaten, maybe you should give them a pig. Anyway, last one, number 6 then. RTFQ. Does that mean royally thank the effing Queen? Or what does RTF? What could it possibly mean?
What could it possibly mean? It will be. I always say, how long will it be on day one before I mention RTFQ? We're before the watershed, so I'm going to do the pre-watershed version. And then I'll probably do we'll pretend we've moved forward in time, because if you're watching this and it's after 9 o'clock, we can do the full version. But
shoot the kids out of the room before he cracks on.
Read the full question. RTFQ. It is the most common mistake that students make on the exam day itself. I've got some techniques that we'll do. It's probably too much to go into now, but I've got some red hot techniques for that as we come towards the end of the course. If you decide to come with us, which we're delighted to see you towards the end of the course, I'll run through this. But it's where getting into that bit of that psychobabble again, where your mind plays tricks on you and your eyes don't see what you're quite seeing, and etc. And there are no trick questions. That is not to say they're not tricky, but they're no trick questions. But people are reading one thing and understanding it as another. So RTFQ. I'd also say read the full answers as well and consider all the answers and say, look, it can't be that one. And why it can't be that one? It can't be that one. And this is why it can't be that one. It can't. So it must be that one. So again, I'm going to refer back to my mentor. Mentors are incredibly important in any walk of life, aren't they? But my mentor, Derek Rose, again, one of his favourite sayings to students was, that is a perfectly good answer to a completely different question. And that is really what RTFQ is about. You think you've seen the question, you are immediately attracted to the answer, which is completely the wrong answer, because if you reread the question, you will see that actually they're not asking that. And half of the technique for both, I mean, it really applies to both case study and multiple choice, is trying to get into the mind of the question setter. Out, what is it they're actually asking me? What is this question about? What is the crux of this question? And why are they asking me? And that really will unravel your answers. So RTFQ is read the fucking question and then read it again. And that's where it comes down to this time thing. If you can promise me that you've read all the questions and understood them properly, that's the biggest thing you can promise. As a candidate to me is just give yourself that get yourself into that mindset. But I don't think I get past 10 o'clock on day one. I'll do well if I can get past 10 o'clock before mentioning RTFQ, and it will be there every single day, like a great big elephant in the room. We will mention it. Unlike the elephant, though, we won't ignore it. We'll mention it every day until you're sick and tired of me saying RTFQ. But you'll know what that means at the end of the course. So that's it. That's my top 6 tips, Pete. I don't know if you agree or disagree with any of those, or you may.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And reading the fucking question is so important, and thinking about it, because anyone who's read the chimp paradox will know that we have this like little chimp inside our head that sort of jumps to conclusions and stuff. And I've got a really good example for you, and I'm a bit disappointed I can't think of more examples, but I love Darren Brown. Darren Brown, some people call him a magician, but he calls himself a mentalist, right? And I'm a massive fan. I don't know how I've got onto talking about Darren Brown during 6 tips for Transport Manager CPC. However, here I am. This is me being random. And Darren Brown asked a question. He's done a series of podcasts for Audible, which are free to access, and I really, really recommend them. But he asks a question, and he says about how the brain plays tricks on you when you're asked a question. He says, you've got a bat and a ball, and the bat and the ball cost £1.10. Okay, the bat costs £1 more than the ball. So, how much is the bat worth, and how much is the ball worth?
Oh, you lost me there.
Okay, so the bat and the ball together are worth £1.10. Okay, and the bat is £1 more expensive than the ball. What my brain did, and what he expects many other brains to do, is they go, well, the bat is £1 and the ball is 10p, because there's the ball is the bat is £1 and the bat is £1.10 and then the ball is 10p, and together they're £1.10. When in reality, it's the ball is 5p and the bat is £1 and 5p, and there's £1 difference between the two. Basically, is what I'm saying. I think I've completely messed it up. But that's perfect sense to me now. But RTFQ, absolutely, yeah. You have to take the question, filter it out, and I'm with you on the chimp paradox. Professor Steve Peters, brilliant work
And your chimp immediately is jumping to that conclusion. But if you let your slower part of your brain deal with it, the human part of your brain, then the logical answer is the correct one. So absolutely spot on.
Yeah, perfect. And do you know what, right? So before we came on to record this, audience, I said to Mike, he goes, do you reckon six things will last the amount of time? And I was like, well, I think with you it could last an hour and a half. So I'm going to say 45 minutes. And he goes to me, 45 minutes. And I said, yeah. And the expectation that actually it'll easily be about an hour. And here we are at just before 50 minutes gone. So there we go. Testament to Mike, the trainer, and his ability to be able to make sure that he gives very thorough answers to questions. So thank you very much, Mike, for that. What I would say is if you're listening and you haven't taken your Transport Manager CPC, have a think about it. It's a really good opportunity to do. There are other training companies, but none of them are quite as good as flagship partners. So make sure you think about that before you go book in your course. There are some very expensive providers and there's some very cheap providers as well. I'd be very wary of the cheap ones is all I'm saying. But yeah, there's many other providers, but flagship is certainly the one for you. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Mike, thank you very much for sharing your infinite wisdom with us as well. It's been really, really enjoyable. I've certainly enjoyed it. I hope the audience have enjoyed it too and had some more insights into the Transport Manager CPC exam. And if you've enjoyed it, please share it with your friends. Please subscribe to the Fleet Geeks podcast. And we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.